As you all, well, those of you who have seen my deck videos know by now, when I'm not playing something goofy and nostalgic, I'm typically playing something that's pretty high powered. I really like big plays, I like efficiency, I like slinging spells, I love counter spells. I mean, I play a lot of blue. I've been trying hard to find a deck that I would enjoy that's not blue, that is lower power, not necessarily like super low power, not playing, precons or purposefully bad decks, but something that I could play with other people who are not necessarily at that same level that I like to play at. People who definitely don't want to play against my control or combo decks or my Niv Mizzet Curiosity combo Spellslinger, whatever nonsense. My very first commander was Mayael. Way before I ever played anything blue. I bought the precon and I fell in love with the deck. It is as Timmy as you can get. When I pick up a new game, I tend to kind of be Timmy. I like to try to go big into big things, and then eventually I start to play a little bit more reserved and controlling. But yeah, aggro seems to be the first thing that I go for. It kind of helps people learn games too. You're doing a lot of actions, you're getting to see what kinds of things are out there. And I just remember having good times with Mayael. I also remember that I did get bored of her, but I wanted to have a deck that I could play with people who just are not at the level that some of my other decks are at. And she's really the best I could come up with. She's non-blue, her ability costs 6. She relies on very expensive creatures, expensive mana-wise. Like, it's kind of random, because you're relying on there being monsters on the top of the deck, the top 5 cards of the deck that work. The way her ability works, it's 3 and Naya and tap, so 6 mana. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You can put a creature with power 5 or greater onto the battlefield, and put the rest on the bottom. So there's a solid chance of whiffing. Most decks that I've seen run anywhere from 25 to 30 fatties, as we call them, creatures of power 5 or greater. I'm running 21, and I wanted to do that on purpose. I wanted to be, first off, a bit lower to the ground. I want to be able to cast my creatures if I have to, and I wanted it to be a bit more random. I want there to be times where I whiff, because the point of this deck is to not only bring back nostalgia, she was my first commander, but also just to play at a lower level with people who are playing kind of janky things. I mean, this is as battle cruiser as you can get. It's big creature beats. Now, it's very finely tuned for the level that it's at. Like, I run a lot of interaction. Like, these are my instants. That's quite a few for a Naya Fatties deck. But, and a lot of my creatures are very powerful. But I'm not running things like Avacyn or Vorinclex. I am running some nasty creatures, but I'm not running Blightsteel. I know people are pretty terrified of Eldrazi. I'm not running any Eldrazi. Some of my creatures may seem kind of weird. Some of them are clearly very terrifying and they can run away with games, but I was trying to avoid the big classic Mayael monsters. So again, no Blightsteel, no Avacyn. Avacyn's kind of mediocre anyway, in my honest opinion. 8 mana for that is I know, it cheats into play, but whatever. I want stuff that's actually castable for the most part. Did I say no Blightsteel? Whatever. Anyway, I also had this really funny outer sleeve. So she's triple sleeved. Wow, such game. Please draw, so meta. And, of course, Doge. Yep, I need to get a foil of her one day, but she's so expensive in foil. I think she's only had 1 foil printing. So maybe one day they'll do a new one. Anyway, we're going to go monster, artifact, enchantment, instant, sorcery, battle, land. I don't know why I do it that way, but that's the way I do it, and you can deal with it. First up is a new card, Agatha. 2 mana, she decreases the cost of my activated abilities by her power. So she's a 1/1, so she makes Mayael's ability cost 5. I will probably never see her actually buffed. Doesn't matter, she cuts the cost. Archon of Valor's Reach shuts off certain spells. It's a 5/6 flying vigilance trample. It can attack and block, and yeah, it's just a really strong card. Being 6 mana makes it castable if I have to hard cast it. Avison's Pilgrim for ramp. Got a nice signed Balefire Dragon. This is one of the cards that's just utterly terrifying. When it deals combat damage to a player, and of course it's a flying dragon, it's a 6/6, it deals that amount of damage to all creatures that player controls, so it's just going to nuke boards. Baneslayer Angel is a personal favorite from back in the day when I originally had this deck and when I was playing Kalia. Just a very straightforward 5-drop 5/5 with keyword soup. She's not a great card, but she works. She's very castable. 5 mana is okay for this lower power kind of thing. So I don't mind if I draw her. Totally okay with just casting her. And the fact that she has flying, first strike, and lifelink with some protection that I'll probably never actually use means she's a solid blocker too. So pretty solid value for that low power. Well, it's kind of a mid-power, whatever. Birds of Paradise, lots of mana. Bloom Tender, lots of mana. Taps for Naya when Mayael's out. Did I mention that I have a lot of mana in here? Chancellor of the Annex is an interesting card. Hard to cast because she's got triple white, 3 white pips plus 4 generic, 7 mana. Only for a 5/6, but she is a flyer that if I open with her, then each opponent has to pay 1 extra for the first spell they cast in the game, or it's countered. And whenever she's out, she just says, hey, your spell is countered unless you pay 1 more for it. So she is going to make some people mad. Balefire, 2 Electric Boogaloo, Drakuseth Maw of Flames. I got a nice foil here. God, it's so hard to see with the way this is set up. When it attacks, it deals 4 damage to any target and 3 damage to each of up to 2 other targets. So it's hitting for 7 plus 10. Right? 4 plus, yeah, so it's swinging for 17 damage. Like, it's going to get places. You know, I'm going to be nuking creatures, nuking planeswalkers, stuff like that. Elder Gargaroth, another really good value card. 5 mana for a 6/6 with Vigilance, Reach, and Trample. So it's going to block for days, it's going to swing for days, it creates tokens, the life gain is most likely going to be irrelevant in almost every game, or draws cards, which is probably what I'm going to be doing for the most part. You don't normally, at least in my old build, you didn't really want to draw cards because that meant that you were that much closer to a one of your big boys, but whatever. This build, I found actually likes drawing cards. Elvish Mystic, more mana. Endurance. I've started to put some free spells into my mid-power decks. I'm not running things like Force of Will in my mid-power Thrasios deck, which has recently changed. It's no longer Thrasios and Sakashima. It's gone through quite a few iterations, because it was originally Thrasios and... Thrasios and Crom? Yeah. Then it was Thrasios and Sakashima. Now it's Thrasios and Ishai. I will be doing a video for that another day. But anyway, yeah, Endurance. I've also been putting this in a lot of decks, because this with Regrowth, assuming that neither of them get exiled. Wow, I almost said banished. I was going back to the Yu-Gi-Oh world. As long as neither of them get exiled, I can loop my grave back into my deck forever. Slowly, yes, but can do it. It's also a 3/4 for 3 that can flash in and block a flyer. I'm okay with that. Esper Sentinel, it's never going to get buffed, but hey, I will take a free draw. Did I mention that I like mana? The more expensive Bloom Tender. Did you know that I like mana? One of the classic creatures, Gisela, effectively a 10/10 that makes everything else on my opponent's boards weak. Flying first strike, she's just nuts. She enables not alpha strikes, because this deck can't really do that. But yeah, this deck, I don't think this deck has a way to do any kind of like alpha strikey kind of plays, but still. Godsire. I've been wanting to play this card for a long time. It's not great. It's 8 mana for an 8/8 that just has Vigilance, but this functions really well with Seedborn Muse and Wilderness Reclamation to stay up as an 8/8 blocker and put in more 8/8 blockers and swingers. So, Heliod kind of sucks here, but I wanted the Vigilance. So, it's one of two ways that I have to give my creatures Vigilance. It's cheap, it's castable. The chances of it being a creature are slim to none, but it's really hard to get rid of. So I figured, you know what, screw it. And besides, I am trying to make it so that this deck isn't necessarily as consistent. You know, I want it to be fun for people to play against. And if I happen to get Heliod and no other creatures and no way to make it a dude, well, that's on me for building the deck that way. Similar thing with Eros. 7/4 gives my stuff Menace and Dolmen Gate, I think. My stuff like prevents damage that would be dealt to my attacking creatures. So, again, probably not ever going to be a dude because of that 7 devotion requirement. But if it is, then it's a solid 7/4. So, yeah, there for value. And if it screws me over, I purposefully put it in here. Kodama is nuts. This thing is disgusting. When I do Mayael's ability, put a big thing into play, if I have another one in my hand that's cheaper, the same cost or cheaper, I just put it into play for free as well. Like, Kodama is just absolutely insane. And it's a 6-drop 6/6 with reach. So, yeah, Kodama is extreme value. And most of my creatures are kind of at that 5 or 6, like, I think 5 or 6 converted mana cost range, so mana. Worse Baneslayer Angel, but she does buff my other angels. So, same cost, same power and toughness, and she's not even really worse. She replaces the protection with a Lord effect. So, yeah, Lyra Dawnbringer. Lyra, whatever. Phyrexian Vindicator is a really cool card. 4 white pips, really hard for this deck to do. Doable, but extremely hard. This card just like, doesn't die to combat. It's a really cool card. 4-drop 5/5 that says, I don't take damage, you take it instead. You knew I was going to go there. God, I love Rikthar. Such a fun Timmy. Well, it's not even a Timmy card, because is it a Spike card? I don't know the whatevers, but it is the definition of big dumb smashy smash. It's a 6-drop 6/6 with Vigilance and Reach. It has to attack, and it burns people whenever they do a thing. Like, it's big. It is a classic battle cruiser kind of card. Seedborn, because duh. Getting creatures into play every turn, tapping Godsire every turn, like, it's pretty important. Selvala, because duh. I don't like this art, to be honest, but it was cheaper than the original printing and the reprints and all the other stuff, so whatever, I went for it. Yeah, I mean, with a 5 power creature on the board, I basically pay 2 mana to activate Mayael. Like, Selvala is just nasty. And because she's an elf, she also, works well with Priest of Titania. Mayael is an elf, so it's just, Here's one of the really nasty cards. Sarah's Emissary. I typically choose creatures. I have protection from creatures. My creatures have protection from creatures. This card is a little bit oppressive to the lower level. The lower level of, the lower power games. Jeez. Sorry. Yeah. Not easy to cast. Another 4-drop with 3 white pips. 7/7 flying. Yeah. That's one of the cards I feel kind of bad about playing. Same with Chancellor of the Annex. I feel much worse about Sarah's Emissary, but whatever. Sigarda, you can't make me sacrifice my stuff. Flying hexproof, 5-drop, 5/5. Like, classic, really strong. Steel Hellkite is so good. You don't care about the buff. You care about the fact that it's a 5/5 flyer that can just nuke things. This just looks at token decks and laughs. Because you swing at them in the air. They take the damage. You pay 0, and you kill all their tokens. Just like that. So. This card's nuts. I mean, it's a 5-drop, 5/4 flyer that we don't care about the additional 3 life. Like the ward 3 life, whatever, basically. That's irrelevant because we're playing Commander. You've got 40 life. Like, who cares about being bolted? The crazy part is the amount of damage that this thing is going to do just from my creatures entering the battlefield. To any target. It's just going to snipe whatever I want. Thorn Mammoth for fighty fights. Because smash. Fight creatures. Xenagod will probably be a lad more often than the others, and even if it wasn't, that ability to just double something's power is really solid. I don't care about the haste, because unless I have Seedborn out, I'm going to be activating Mayael on my last opponent's turn before it goes to my turn. But, yeah, just doubling up something's power works really well with Gisela. Zakama, I highly doubt that I will ever cast this, but it's a 9/9 with Vigilance, Reach, and Trample that has some pretty solid utility. Pay 3 to bolt a creature, pay 3 to naturalize, pay 3 to gain 3 life, which I probably will never do. But hey, if there's nothing that's really worth bolting, or no artifacts or enchantments that are worth blowing up, and I have extra mana at the end of a turn, why not gain a little bit of life? Last creature is Zerda the Dawnwaker. Reduce activated costs by 2. I am not running this as a companion because my deck cannot make it work that way. 1 and tap to make target creature unable to block. That's cool, but it's mainly here because it's a 3-drop that makes Mayael cheaper. Illusionist's Bracers, onto the artifacts, obviously, copies the activated ability. So equip it to Mayael, now she's getting 2 creatures from the top 10. Scroll Rack, if I've got too many big boys in my hand, I can't cast them all, just put it on top, Mayael's ability goes off. Works. And, of course, Soul Ring. On to enchantments. Elemental Bond. Whenever one of my fatties enters, I draw a card. Garruk's Uprising. Whenever one of my fatties enters, I draw a card, and it gives my creatures trample, but most of them have some kind of combat evasion anyway. Wilderness Reclamation. Seedborn Muse. Sure. That made perfect sense. Oh, forgot one. Brave the Sands. Creatures I control have vigilance and can block an additional creature each. It's mainly there for the vigilance. It's 1 in white to give all my creatures vigilance. One of the things with a deck like this is it goes very tall. It doesn't go very wide. So if I don't have many creatures, I could potentially be taken out by a Weenies deck. They have a lot of tokens. They just spam the tokens at me. I don't have enough things to block, especially if I am swinging. Vigilance helps protect me a little bit. That gorgeous Phyrexian Beast Within to blow up a thing. Boros Charm for mostly for protection. The 4 damage is fine. The double strike part is cool. Like with Xenagod and Gisela, like that can go off. You can... Can I just kill somebody right there? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, yeah. Mainly there for the protection. Congregation at Dawn is a really cool card. 3 mana, instant to Worldly Tutor 3 times. I typically will just grab 2 creatures. I will put like a Dork, typically Selvala on top, and then a fatty right after that, so that I can do Mayael's activation, assuming that I have the mana to cast Selvala. But anyway, sometimes I'll grab Birds of Paradise instead. I mean, it sets things up. Deflecting Swat. Yeah, I know it's a free spell, and I said I wasn't going to run free spells in these kinds of decks, but whatever. Little pseudo counter spell. Eladamri's Call. Grab Selvala. That's typically what I grab, or Priest of Titania. Enlightened Tutor. I do have some gods, so I can get gods. I do have some valuable artifacts and enchantments, so I can get those, put them up there. I think Kodama is an enchantment creature. Now I have to look. Oh, Esper Sentinel is an artifact creature. I can grab that with Enlightened Tutor. Kodama is not an enchantment creature. But still, I mean, there are plenty of options. Oh yeah, I can get Steel Hellkite. So yeah, I can get my gods, Steel Hellkite, the other artifacts and enchantments I have, Esper Sentinel. Enlightened Tutor works pretty well. Flawless Maneuver for more protection from wraths and stuff. Beast Within 2, Electric Boogaloo, blow up a thing. Heroic Intervention, protection from wraths and stuff. Lightning Bolt, I think pretty much every red commander deck should be running it. Nature's Claim. Noxious Revival. Oh, you killed one of my fatties? Alright, let me put it back on top. Mayael, why don't you go get it? Oh, you killed Selvala? Let me draw it again. Surge of Salvation for more protection. Gives all my things hexproof and prevents damage that black and red sources would deal to my creatures this turn. 1 mana for that seems solid. Swords to Plowshares. Various protection. I like I said, there's a lot of interaction in this deck. Wear and Tear. Got a nice OG foil there. Pay 3 mana to blow up 2 things. I'll take that. And, of course, Worldly Tutor. Like, if you're not playing that, what are you doing? I'm not playing Sylvan Tutor. I would like to. I don't have the money for that. And this deck is not worth me investing that much money into. I mean, I have the money for it, but it's whatever. Farseek. Just put a land into play. Usually Jetmir's Garden. Finale of Devastation, because that card is disgustingly strong. Green Sun. Finale and Green Sun are typically going to be grabbing me either Selvala, Priest of Titania, Birds of Paradise, or Seaborn Muse. Nature's Lore, more ramp. Regrowth, like I mentioned, it works really well with Endurance and Noxious Revival, so that I have some recursion. And 3 visits for more ramp. My battle is Invasion of Ikoria. And the reason I'm playing it, aside from the fact that it's weaker Finale of Devastation, is that it's also chunky chunk. Yep. So if I ever actually do get it flipped, then I have a big 8/8 with reach that helps my damage get through. So, yep. Good old Invasion of Ikoria. I'm running 32 lands, I think. 3 of them are modal. They're sorceries and lands. I have them flipped over as lands. I know that they're technically sorceries, but I have them flipped over as lands because they're most likely going to be played as lands. If it gets to the point in a game where it actually matters, I will treat them as a sorcery. Ancient Tomb. Beseju, so good. Blow up ding. Zipomenade. City of Brass. I'm not running original duels or fetches in this deck. Command Tower. I don't really feel like those should be in any decks that are below high power. Aganjo Castle. I will probably never use the protection part, but whatever. Aganjo, Seat of the Empire. I mean, I might use the little mini, not bolt, but dealing 4 damage to a thing once or twice. Ameria, Shattered Skyclave. This is the first of those switch ones. It's the one that plays some big angels or something. Enters untapped if I pay 3 life, so sure. 3 forests. Oops. Jetmir's Garden. If I didn't have the ramp spells, the ramp sorceries, I probably actually wouldn't play Jetmir's Garden just because I'm not running any fetches, and I don't want to play a land tapped if I can help it. Really? Rude. Cards fell down. Kessig Wolfrun. If I happen to have a lot of extra mana, then I can maybe kill a player. Whatever. Mana Confluence. 2 mountains. Okina, Temple to the Grandfathers. The +1/+1 is probably going to be irrelevant, but it was just going to be another forest. So, whatever. Overgrown Farmland. That is the reason that I'm running some of those utility lands that are probably never going to be useful. Since I'm not running fetches, and I did drop things like Rampant Growth, I stopped running Cultivate in pretty much all my all my decks, same with Kadama's Reach. Jeez. I decided that for these decks, I could cut down on the number of basics to throw in some utility that might pop up once every 3,000 games. 3 plains. Rockfall Vale. Sacred Foundry. The second of those, Modal, whatever, Shatterskull. The other ability burns a thing, I think. I haven't looked at it in a while. Shinka is one that I actually might use more often to give something first strike. That's pretty relevant. Sokinzan, I will probably never channel it because I make 2 1/1 tokens with it, but we'll see. You know, maybe there is a time where I'll use it. Maybe I need it to protect me this one turn because I'll probably win on the next turn. I don't know. Spectator Seating. We're almost at the end, I promise. Spire Garden. Stomping Ground. As you can see, I do not like running lands that enter tapped. Sundown Pass. It's all about efficiency. Temple Garden. And the third of those things, Turn Timber, Serpent, whatever. That is my Mayael deck. It is Naya Big Good 2 Electric Boogaloo. That is my current weakest deck, and honestly, I'm pretty proud of it. I've only played it a couple of times, but so far it was only in 1v1s, but so far it's done what it needs to. I've done a lot of gold fishing on Tapped Out with it, and I've been noticing, and gold fishing, you can't really, see who's going to be interacting with you, so take this with a grain of salt that there was no interaction involved, so I was assuming I was playing against people who don't know how to play interaction, which hopefully that's not the case. I want them to interact with me. It typically gets to a point where it's pretty unmanageable for opponents at around turn 9, which is slow. Like, I'm trying to make this deck slow, somewhat inconsistent, but still enjoyable. Not only for me, but for other players. Because I get it, People don't always like playing against control or dedicated combo and lots of counter spells. I get it. I enjoy playing against that. I want to see the best that people have to offer, but not everybody wants to play that way. So I brought back an old friend.
Goodbye.